And then I'll get going. All right. Well, welcome everyone. I know most of you, not all of you. I'm the Innovation Center Director at the middle school. And I'm going to do my best to do Google Suite 101. But I do want to kind of start out with a couple things to mention. So when I first was asked by Jane to do this, I'd put a couple goals in my plan, but then since that time, we've really had this shift to, we're gonna start rolling out Schoology. And I'm on the team that's helping to roll that out. And I'm actually very familiar with Schoology because I used it for about 4 years in a previous organization. So I guess the reason I'm saying that is the caveat with this is I'm not gonna do too much with Google Classroom because I know that the plan at the admin level is to anyone who's already been using Google Classroom and especially for a long time and is super comfortable with that and not quite ready to shift everything over, can keep using Google Classroom and slowly make the shift to Schoology in the next year or so. But anyone who kind of just started on Google Classroom, I may be the bearer of bad/scary news. But honestly, I love Schoology. It's, in my opinion, got so much more than Google Classroom. But there's going to be kind of the push to get anyone who's just a little bit familiar with Google Classroom or not at all familiar with Google Classroom to go over to Schoology. So,
So Maureen?
Yes?
If we haven't used Google Classroom, do we need to be in this training or should we just do the Schoology training?
Well, I would say it depends on what your level of, what your expectation is for today, and also your level of comfort with like Google Slides, Google Docs, Google Spreadsheets, and Google Forms and Quizzes is also, I'd say, really helpful because the other thing I'll add is that Schoology does have, it jives really well with Google Drive. So any assignments, or Google Docs or Google Slides or anything that you would put into Google Classroom or share in any way previously, you can share it right through Schoology directly, kind of the same way if you have used Google Classroom, how you can share it where it's like a copy is created for each student. Kind of the same thing is possible, or you're able to do that in Schoology.
Well, at Teak Park, we haven't used Google Suite at all. Like we use the Google Drive and we dabble in Google Docs to share things. But other than that, we don't really use the Google applications. So, I mean, we're going to make a shift to digital tools and it sounds like Schoology will be our tool.
Yes, but this is all a lot of helpful, I would say, digital, because Google Suite is like Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Sheets.
Okay.
So, and like I said, it jives really well with Schoology. So I just wanted to make sure that anyone who was expecting for me to go over a lot of Google Classroom, I'm not going to end up doing that so much because of this shift or this kind of stronger decision that's been made in the last week or two. So, but what I am gonna go over, and also though, at the same time, I wanna say that any questions anyone has, even about Google Classroom or Google Sites, because I've created Google websites, I'm more than happy to answer any questions about those. I'm gonna try to leave plenty of time at the end for Ask Me Anything, but I'm gonna focus my energy, and based on the survey that I put out, there's a somewhat wide range of background with these. So I'm just going to try to make sure some of what I think are the most important things to know. I'm going to try to share that. So I'm going to go over slides and docs, forms and quizzes, and sheets, and then time for questions. So, and anytime now or in the future, please, this is to me a beginning or middle if I've already helped you with this in any way. beginning of a conversation, I'm constantly learning. I love playing with this stuff. My husband comes to me all the time. If it's a car thing, I go to him. If it's this kind of stuff, he comes to me. So this is fun for me because I'm a dork like that, I guess. Basic tools of slides and docs. So, and these, honestly, some of these notes are for me to remind myself of what I want to go over. So I'm going to go into slides and docs, and honestly, they work pretty similar. But I just want to make sure some of the, so say I was in, I know you mentioned, April, that, you know, you're used to Google Drive. So like if I'm here and I'm in my account, I just hover over this Google Apps, and that's where I usually go to get to any of my apps. And there's so many, but like I said, I'm in it. So if I just went to Google Drive, I could get into any of my slides, docs, etc. And don't judge my drive. It's not as organized as it could be because I have a lot in here. And I heard someone say that they're used to Microsoft Word, which is definitely what I used to use, you know, years ago. The one thing, on the one hand, there's maybe not as many tools in Google Docs as Microsoft Word. However, the one thing I really love about it is it saves to the cloud, or saves to Drive. So if I turn in this computer and get a new computer, I can still access all this. And then also that it automatically saves. So there's not that freak out of, oh no, I didn't save and my computer crashed and whatever. It just constantly is automatically saving. So, so if I was in here and I wanted to go to Google Docs, this is how I would get, or I could just, like I said, that little waffle kind of thing. And if you're not super familiar with this, and I know some of this might be, you already know for someone who does have more experience, but I'd encourage you, I won't go over all these right now, but just encourage you to experiment and explore all of these little pieces up here, because, like, for example, one thing I wanted to show was embedding a link. So I can, meaning I can connect a link to another website into either a picture or words. So it's not like this long, like HTTPS dot, or, you know, colon, //, you know, for students to click on. They can just click on an actual picture, or they can click on a word. So say I wanted to create a table. You know, I go down here, I want to create a, like, say, a choice board or something. And I had, you know, just to keep it simple, I have choice 1, choice 2, etc. But say I had choice 1, 2, 3, and then I also wanted to have some images, so I could insert an image. And my favorite way to get images is just to search the web, because then I can find a lot, but I also know it's like kind of free to use. It's not, if it's through this application, it's free to use. So say it's a choice board about frogs. So I can find a frog, click insert, and it'll populate a little picture. And I'm not going to fill in any more, because what I also want to show is how easy it is to insert a link. So say this one, I wanted to link to BrainPop. And I can even just start typing BrainPop, and it'll, you know, guess what I'm typing basically, and click apply. And now that's a clickable link. I can do the same thing to this one. And, you know, maybe it's a breakout EDU game on, and, you know, of course I'd have a more specific link. I'm just doing this to show the basics, but I can make that to go to a different site, and then so on and so forth. But I can also highlight that whole picture and click this little insert link. And I can, start searching frogs for kids. Let's see what comes up. Here we go. Frogs at the San Diego Zoo. And so now this whole picture is actually a clickable link. So then if I, and I'm not going to completely fill out this choice board, but I can then share it. And like I said, there's ways right through Schoology, which I won't get into today. But if I wanted to share it by email, I need to save it. So now I can share it with groups, or I like to actually copy the link, but I like to also change the settings. So I know I'm going through some of this kind of quickly, but like the link settings right here. So people in RSU can search for this file. Oh, this is what I wanted to change. So I can change whether people can view it, comment on it, or edit it. And I typically, especially if I'm sharing with students, and just kind of my default typically is viewer, unless I'm working with someone very specifically on a document that I want them to be able to change things around. So anyone in RSU 39 can view it. So I'd copy that link, and then, as an example, I could go to my email and paste that link, or I even like to, again, see that's a super long link, so I would probably I'm not going to go into all this, but there are ways to link it right in your email. So again, you don't have these long, convoluted things. So I guess overall what I'm saying is, explore some of these, especially insert and format, because there's a lot of simple ways to kind of make it interactive, so it's not just a document you're sharing with students that they just have to read, but especially for younger kids or families, some clickable items. Oh, and then over here, what I wanted to show are these 3 dots, just to make sure you're aware that there's a little bit more down here. So if I wanted to, say I wanted to add bullet points down here, I can insert a bulleted list or a numbered list. And so that's, kind of the quick overview of docs, and slides is very similar.
Maureen,
Yes,
could I add a little something?
absolutely.
So last year, Sue K taught us how to make graphic organizers on docs.
Mm-hmm.
So you just go to, hold on, insert and drawing. And I created my own graphic organizers, and the kids were able to type right in them. They got the copy of it, and then they were able to fill in the graphic organizer on their own.
So like in the drawing?
Yeah, so like you do text boxes, and I would do like, or a Venn diagram or something, and then they could fill it out on their own. Yep.
Yep, awesome. Yeah, and I wasn't gonna even do too much with drawings, but that's a whole nother thing you can add, like Cheryl said, like a Venn diagram. And again, it's really awesome in either Google Classroom, if you've already experimented with this, or in Schoology, how this document, if I wanted it to be something that kids were typing into, there's a way to share it with them where it's, 1 copy per student. So they automatically have their own one that just they are working on. So they're not just viewing it. It's just in the confines of this hour. I'm not going to go into that, but on Thursday when I do the Schoology one, anyone who's going to be there, I'll show more of how to do that. So there's a drawing you can create and add in, and so make a Venn diagram or any other type of graphic organizer. And then slides. The tools are quite similar, so I won't kind of rehash everything I just said with the sharing and formatting and such, but I will. And I know there's been some interest in Bitmoji classrooms. I'm going to maybe try to do a session on that in the next week or so. And I actually, last night, my husband ended up falling asleep on the couch while we were watching TV. So I played on my Bitmoji classroom while watching TV for like an hour and a half, creating. And it is kind of fun for someone who likes that kind of stuff, I guess. So the nice thing here, I like a couple quick things. In slides, you know, you can add new slides easily or duplicate slides I love. So if I already have a presentation and I don't want to have to keep kind of recreating the wheel. So those are some good tools to explore that are different in slides. And arrange is actually pretty cool, which I will, for the sake of, and I'll also show about embedding videos in Google Slides. But I'll show you my Bitmoji classroom that I was, like I said, playing with last night. And this Bitmoji classroom phenomenon, I guess in Schoology, I'm on the team that's helping to create templates for different grade levels, or like kind of grade spans, like in Schoology with kind of an organization that will be consistent across various grade spans. And then there's also the thought to have each teacher have a Bitmoji classroom. But again, there's the talk of having kind of a template so someone wouldn't have to spend several hours creating this. But it's neat because like this is linked to a 3D printer design software. And this is linked to a YouTube video I created about augmented reality. And this is linked to a Breakout EDU game, like a Welcome Back to School Breakout EDU game. And this is linked to a virtual reality tutorial, kind of how to create your own. And I'm linked to my email, like my Bitmoji is linked to my email. So it is kind of a neat, like welcoming little virtual classroom, and other things I still am linking. But it is kind of fun. But what I was going to show, so for example, if I took this speech bubble and drug it down for whatever reason in front of her, the arrange tool is really helpful. So if you are working with several images, I can say that for the order of images, when I'm layering things, I want to send it to the back. And that actually put it like all the way to the back, behind the blue back kind of fake wall. So then I'd bring it back to the front. But it's nice to know that arrange tool is there for when you're doing a little bit more. And then, and say I wanted to have another kind of section of my classroom with other things, I could duplicate this slide and then just change out a few things, which is really nice, like I was saying. But if I wanted a brand new slide, that is easy to do too. And I usually I'm gonna now just quickly go over how to embed videos. And because both videos and then one other interactive piece, and I know I'm going over a lot for anyone who's less familiar with Google Suite in general. So like I said, I'm recording this, and then also any questions you come up with, hopefully there's something that piqued your interest or you want to try. But if I wanted to insert a YouTube video, you just go to insert, video. And again, it's nice because you can search right within here. You know, you can, if you have something on a Google Drive or some other URL, but my go-to is YouTube. So say I wanted to have a Bitmoji tutorial. Do a search. So this is just how to create your own little like emoji of yourself. Say I wanted to have kids create their own, and then create their own little bedroom or, you know, home study area or whatever, a Bitmoji version of it. So I had this embedded in here so I wouldn't have to be like clicking around and pulling other tabs. I can have it, you know, play right in there if I'm doing some kind of a lesson on Zoom and I'm sharing this during remote learning, or recording a lesson that's a Google slideshow, but within that Google slideshow, I wanted to share just a little video. Oh, okay. I just had to go back to this to remind myself. The last thing I want to mention regarding slides and docs that I love, and a couple middle school teachers have seen me use this, and this is actually something that can be used during remote learning as well, and can get kids engaged in ways. I mean, and this probably wouldn't work as well with some of the littler guys, but there is a drawing option. So what I'm getting to, I'm just gonna throw another new slide in here, because there's different what are called add-ons, if that makes sense to anyone. It's basically kind of like an app, there's typically free options. So I just have a couple, but there's a ton if you were to click this get add-ons. But the one I particularly like is this Pear Deck. And there's another one, if you've heard of it, called Nearpod that's kind of like it. But I'm just gonna show one. And it makes the slide interactive. So, you know, say I'm using my Apple TV in my classroom, or I'm sharing this via Zoom. If anyone's ever played Kahoot or any other type of interactive game on a website where you just have to type in a code and then you're participating, this is kind of the same idea, but it's, you know, like multiple choice questions, and each slide can be a different, oh, sorry, it's walking me through this since this is, so it's adding this interactive question. Oh, sorry. Oh, that's weird. It didn't add a whole lot. Usually, here, let me try. I'm gonna change it to, oh, sorry, I had choice, but I'm gonna add the choices. This is a little different than, okay, so I want, oh, okay, so sorry, yes. So this is almost like making a poll. And now, so sorry, before it was a little different last time I used it. I don't know why it's not filling, but so this is flopping a little here. Just a sec. Let's try a drawing one. Oh, sorry, this is a premium one. I guess you'd have to play around with this, but oh, that's why. Sorry, I hadn't jumped over to the template library. That's what I use. I'm like, what is going on here? So here, this stuff is all free. Beginning of lesson, during lesson, end of lesson. Forgive me, I honestly haven't really used this much since March, because I did use it a lot in the classroom since I wasn't teaching in the traditional way when we were home. So this is what I was trying to find. So like this is instructions for students, you know, telling them what to do. But then like this is the kind, like Cheryl, I know I've used this with your kids in 6th grade. This is one I really like, where, you know, draw or type 2 things you already know about today's topic, and then the kids on their devices, once, you know, once I start the lesson, and it looked like there's the option to do student paced, so they can do it on their own, or you can do it kind of as a whole group, which is a nice feature. I think they maybe just added that with this most recent craziness we're encountering, so that students could even do this on their own time instead of all at once. Oh, here we go.
Maureen,
Yep.
I want to do with my kiddos to help get to know them and to help build some relationships. So it's called Question of the Day.
Yep.
And for kindergarten, it's simple things like, do you have letter K in your name? Or have you ever been to the beach or something?
Yep.
Would there be a way I could do that so that the remote kids could also answer?
Yeah, well, like if you were using this, for example, both
Yeah.
your in-class kids, and if you were live with your remote kids, or if you had your remote kids doing it on their own on like a self-paced level, like same thing, they would just have to enter this code. They go, all the kids have to go to this website, joinpd.com. And then, so, I mean, they would definitely at kindergarten level need some help getting into it, but then once they're there, they can all interact. And like the drawing one, especially if they're using it like on an iPad, would probably be pretty. So I just wanted to show you kind of how it works. That like once I had students connected, then I can start kind of presenting, and it presents it like this, where, and then you can show responses. Oh, this is that messed up one that I did. But like for this one, once kids have drawn, I can, well, first of all, I can lock their screens. So say I'm giving them a 2-minute timer, and then I can lock their screens and say, okay, you're done drawing. Now let's see what everyone said. And it's nice because it's anonymous. And I always do my little spiel of it's got to be school appropriate and kind and on topic. But so responses are locked because there's nothing to show. But if I click on show responses, then I can scroll through all the answers of different kids. So then you can, you know, the kids kind of learn from each other in that way, and kids who aren't typically willing to participate are, you know, everyone participates to answer a question instead of just the kids who are more willing to raise their hand. So that's, I guess, a big reason I like that. So, yeah. I know, again, that was kind of a quick. If anyone has more questions about Pear Deck, aside from my little mess up there at the beginning, I am quite familiar with it, and happy to help anyone who's trying it out and has questions. So, and if I'm going like way too fast for anyone or whatever, just please let me know. I'm just trying to get a few of these things in before I open it up to any and all questions. So I'm going to move on to forms and quizzes now. And I kind of love these just because there are actually tons, and like I said, I'll share this with everyone, but if you click on this et cetera link, it actually links to a teacher's website who has kind of, I don't know, 10 or 15 different ideas under professional development, ways to use it with other teachers, 10 or 15 ideas of how to use it with your students, 10 or 15 ideas of how to use it for yourself, kind of for organizing. So, but one, like, for example, I went to a workshop and I thought this was a great way. So I'll show these, but then I'll go into forms and just show you how to set up a very basic form. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to do that. I meant to click on this link. So this is a form I can't take credit for, but I was, you know, I love those workshops where you get really hands-on, and she had us creating different heights of a ramp, and then these little cars that were created with 3D printed wheels and different types of wheels, so it was kind of comparing and contrasting. So we do our little tests and see how far they went, and then we'd enter in, you know, what wheel style based on this chart. Did you add a cart to your little, you know, did you add a spring? What was your ramp height? Did you add weights? How far did it go? Your answer. Okay, so, you know, that's the simple, straightforward form or, you know, survey. But the neat part to me, and I know there is at least 1 or 2 people in here interested in sheets, you know, the spreadsheets. If you're trying to organize data quickly, this is the data from that form. It, you know, automatically fills out in a spreadsheet. So like, you know, the survey I sent to you all, instead of having to kind of manually organize my information from everyone, or like in a quick science or math experiment, the kids, you know, then can, you know, then they can even analyze this and sort it, and but it just autofills into a spreadsheet, which I'll show you how that works in a minute. But, you know, of course, it's not just called Google Forms, it's also Google Quizzes. So like this is an example of a quiz that I used in the Innovation Center. So in this case, there's points assigned. And before kids could use any tools, they had to, you know, go through a whole safety training and then take this, it's like a 10-question quiz, submit, and then, you know, it's easy on my end. So then if I'm in my view, this would be my view, I can see here their responses. And I can see it as a summary, by question, by individual. And, you know, this is a summary. And it's nice because it has it all in charts. But then if there was one individual student I just wanted to look at and see why, you know, why were they having a hard time with this or whatever, you know, what things do I need to go over with them again? I can look at it individually. But then up here, this is where I can create a spreadsheet. And I can create a brand new spreadsheet, or if I have some other, you know, I'm just adding data to something else I already have, I can do that. But I actually didn't have a need to create a spreadsheet for that, so I didn't, but I will right now just to demo. So I can see this all here, you know, see scores. So, and even for me as an instructor, if I'm seeing like there's a lot of students getting the 30 to 50 percentile range, like I need to adjust my, you know, safety training and my testing, because something, you know, it's maybe not a very good assessment if that many people are failing it, or, you know, or whatever. Or if there's a certain question that a lot of kids are getting wrong, it would be easy for me to see that here as well. And just to kind of quickly go over how I would create one of these and duplicate, which I love as well. Like I created a survey for all 3 of the trainings I'm doing this week, but I just created one, duplicated it, and just modified it a little for the subsequent, which is, of course, really nice. So this is what it looks like, but you have a lot of options. You know, like up here, I can customize the theme. So say it's for a math class or math data, or, you know, something along those lines. I can look in this work in school section and maybe find something that's, or you can even upload a photo if you want to, but something, or I don't see anything too mathy, so let's go science. So then that will be added in at the top, but, you know, that's, and then if I want to see what it looks like to students, I can preview it. And then there's definitely a lot of settings you can change. So right now it's automatically a form, but if I wanted to change it to a quiz, I would just go over here in settings, make this a quiz, and that's what allows you to add point values to each question and identify a correct and incorrect answer, which obviously would be different than a survey where you're just trying to get information. But it's nice to have that. So, so I'll make it a quiz for the sake of just being able to show you a little bit about how that works with adding points. So, say my question is, what is the scientific method? And, you know, I could either have it a multiple choice where there's like 4 definitions and one of them is correct, or I can make it short answer. And then in the answer key, I do find for certain ones it's a little tricky sometimes for a short answer to identify a correct answer, and then especially if you're going to mark all other answers incorrect, but that's neither here nor there. And then of course I assign a point value. So the scientific method is, and I'm not going to fill this all in, but I actually, for something like a short answer, wouldn't mark all other answers correct. And I can add a few, the scientific, so there's some variation, but I would, and then that's one where I would have to kind of go and read. But then you'll see it's got my point value, it's got an answer key, and then again, I can duplicate, but another important thing to know is it's required. So say it's a 10-question quiz and all questions are required, I do have to go and click that on every one. So a kid could not submit it until they've answered all 10. And then this is not too important, I would say. And this is a nice thing too. So I'll add another question. Say I realize that, oh, I don't want that to be the first question. I can just hover over these couple dots and click and drag to move my questions around. You can even, like, say it's a question about a video, or it's just one video they're watching and answering 3 questions about it. I can add a video, frogs in California. And then I have, you know, 4 comprehension questions. So I can have that video, and then what was the main idea or whatever, you know, I can.
Is there any way to have it read the question to the kindergartner?
Good question. I haven't even thought about that. So let me see here. If I would probably have to do a little bit of research on that.
It would also work for a special ed kid too.
Exactly, yeah. Like,
So please
teachers.
let us know if you find. That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely, yep. I will.
Thank you,
check that out.
Jen.
Absolutely. So I'll include that in the email I send later today, because I, off the top of my head, don't know that. So I'll find out for sure. But so that's another way you could use it, just as a comprehension piece. But it is nice because, again, you can, in your responses, create that spreadsheet if it's helpful, and just kind of see the responses easily. So that was kind of a quick overview. Oh, I guess the last thing I'll go over, though. Well, one thing I will show is, this is something I like. I like to get email notifications when kids complete something, or staff. For example, the surveys I sent to you all, like, I didn't have this setting on, but then I was like, oh, it'd be nice to know, so then I know to kind of go, it's a reminder to me to go check responses. So I'd click that, and then I know that when I get responses, that I'll get an email just letting me know, you got a new response, got a new response. That might be annoying to some people, though. Last piece, though, I'll show you is when you want to send it or share it. And in like Google Classroom, you can link it really easily, or even create these kind of within Google Classroom. So that's nice. But I have a few options for sending it via email, getting a link, or shortening the link, which is a nice feature, especially if you're not gonna hyperlink it, or embedding it, which I won't get into that, but like I have one embedded in my Google website. So instead of having it something you have to click a link and it pops you out, it's like right there on a web page. All right. And the last one I hadn't mentioned was this feedback research, which is kind of basically what I do when I'm going to be leading professional development, or like trying to get to know what teachers are working on and what kind of lessons I can integrate with. So this is like the one I sent to you all, but this is my, or your perspective. And then this is if I wanted to go and change it. If I realize, oh, a question's not clear, especially if it's a feedback something and it's not gonna affect the outcome of other kids' test scores, I could go in and change a question that I realize isn't clear or whatever. And then here you can see I've got my responses and I can look through that, so. And then, like I said, I'll just click on this. I will say her actual page is maybe a little clunky, but if you scroll down, this has a lot of ideas and may even have some ones you could duplicate, which, that's the last thing I'll show before I forget. If I wanted to duplicate this whole thing for another section and say it was like I had, even as an example, last year I had a quiz I created for regular ed students, and then the teacher for a special ed group asked me to modify it a little bit for a special ed group. So I did, and it was easy because then I just duplicated it. So if you hover here on these three dots, I just click make a copy. So then I'd have a new one and I could, retitle it, and then not have to completely redo all of my questions, just maybe modify them a little or change it. Yeah. And the last thing I was going to go over is in Sheets. And again, I love that connection with forms and quizzes on Sheets, but I will just quickly go over some very basic formatting and the one function tool I really like and use semi-regularly, and then just a couple, I guess, merge and text wrapping, etc. That was kind of to remind myself. And then I have plenty of time for questions. So let's see here. Let's go to a new, I'll just create a new spreadsheet. And the one thing that's nice in Google Suite is that the little menus up here are pretty consistent. It changes depending a little on what you can do within Docs versus Sheets versus Slides. So if I, say I were just making a simple budgeting type spreadsheet, like for a grant, for example, I have made these like an item purchased, cost, and like that would even be just a really simple one. I've done that before just to keep track of, like, say I've got a $400 grant, I'm keeping track of how much I'm spending. But for formatting, it's just easy to, like bold or change the font, of course, but say I wanted it all to have borders. So if I were to print it out, it would have borders, or I just want to make a column bigger. So I could highlight whatever section and say I want borders around all of that. And then one other thing you can do, which I really like, is like this whole column, I can set to be format it as money. So I'm going to format it as currency. A couple of like kind of the ones you typically might need, percent, currency, or moving decimal places are right here. But if you had other formats you wanted, you can click on here, depending on how fancy you want to get. But it's nice. So say I bought cups and it was $20 worth of cups. I just type in 20 and it'll auto format it like that with the decimal. And then plates, I don't know what I'm buying all this for, but but then the one function I'll show you, because I like this as well. So I've got my total down here, and I'm going to align that differently just because that's how I usually would do it. I want to have a sum. I want it to be like a rolling total every time I add a new one in. I don't have to calculate or get out my actual calculator. I can have this whole, I can highlight that whole column. And over here, this little, I can't even remember what that Greek symbol is, but I'm sure someone here knows. And click on that, and there's all these different things, which I don't know about a lot of them, but some I do, an average. So I click sum, and then anything, actually, okay, so I accidentally drug it too far. So now this, so we'll put the total down here. And, you know, it'll keep adding in. So if I had $2.15, you know, and whatever, it'll just keep adding it in. So then I know, but you can do, if you're looking at averages, you know, for test scores or in a math lesson, obviously, or different arrays, there's tons in here that I haven't really dabbled in. So this is just Google Suite 101, not 201 or 401. But that's, you know, a couple formatting things I wanted to show. You know, these are easy to drag and make bigger. If I realize I want to delete a whole row, I can just highlight it by clicking on the side, or a whole column, I can highlight it by clicking on that. And under edit, I think it is, I could say delete column C because it knows I've got that highlighted, or delete values or whatever. And again, you can hyperlink in here. So if I wanted, say I wanted it to be linked to the place I purchased it at, I can hyperlink that to Target. Target.com, there we go, that's where I purchased it. I don't know, but again, you can hyperlink, you can.
So can I ask a question?
Sure, you can
Okay.
insert images here.
So if I'm thinking of using this like for data for benchmarks and NUIA, and so I'm going to say that I have pretend all kindergarten classrooms on here, the students' names and all their data, and I want to filter. So a teacher comes to me and says, well, I want to know my kids' scores for NUIA, but my first, in column B, I have benchmarks and all. Is there any way to filter it and organize and manipulate it without having to retype everything in a format? Do you see what I'm saying?
I guess
Like
I have to see what you're meaning.
Okay, so for example, for the example that you have now, you say item purchased and you have a cost, and we're going to say in column C that you have the different places that you purchased. So it might be Target, might be Walmart, might be Target again, but you want all your Target purchases
Oh yeah,
together.
yep.
Is there a way to do, but in the end, you really have to have it in the order of the date that you purchased it.
Yep.
But in that one particular place, that one report or whatever it is, you need just all those things that you ordered from Target.
Okay.
Is there any way to filter that?
Absolutely. So yeah, that made more sense. Thanks for. So let's see. So I've got this. I'll add this on just to, I don't know. I like things consistent. And if I wanted to sort all this data, so I want to keep, you know, the plates and the $20, and I said it was Target connected, and the, you know, bin and the 215 and Walmart all connected, and you know, so I wanted to keep it all like that. So sorting, that's another good, really good thing to know. So I'd go like that and highlight, you know, all the data I wanted to sort. And under data, I would, let's see, sort. I guess for this one, I'd probably do sort range. And like in this one, I'd want to do it by column C. And I'd say data, well, data has a header row, but I didn't highlight the header row, so I don't need to click that. Like if I'd highlighted everything, including the header row, I would have to click that little box. So now it's organized. So that was under data, sort. And you'll have to kind of look at if you want it the whole sheet or just a range that you've highlighted.
Okay.
There are more advanced things you can do with like creating filters and such, but just to keep it real simple, if you just wanted to sort based on one column. I hope that made sense. And
It did. Thank you.
Yep. And then I think that brings me to, oh, I guess the last thing I'll show real quick, and this probably isn't as important, but I mean, say I had a really long item that was just like, I don't know, box full of tools, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just trying to make it long, but I didn't want to make this column. I could either stretch out the column, or I could leave the column short if I wanted to try to fit it on a certain size page, highlight that, and I think it's on here. Oh wait, no. Yeah, sorry, here, text wrapping. Some of the little symbols, I forget what they all mean. So text wrapping is basically wrapping it around so it makes it like a kind of a taller row, but keeps it all viewable. So I want it to wrap. I can overflow where it would kind of show like this, or I can, oh, I didn't highlight it, sorry. I have to, there we go. That's what I was trying to do. I mean, there's various options, but it's just nice to know little things like that to be able to manipulate it, especially like sometimes I have an issue where I'm trying to fit something all on a page, like a, you know, a chart for students or something, and to know that you can manipulate the text like that. Or if for some reason I wanted to merge cells, that's another thing you can like say for some reason I wanted to connect all three of those cells and make them one big cell. Oh, like I would, a reason I would do that maybe, I'll do this. I'm gonna insert a row above, and I wanted to have a little title up here of what the, you know, so I'm gonna merge all these cells, which this, if you hover over them, it'll tell you what they are. This is merge cells, so those three I highlighted are just gonna become one big cell. And then I can label it grant budget. And, you know, for me, I'd probably align it to the center or whatever. So, and, you know, so that's just one other little easy trick slash tip. All right. And I know we're getting close to 2:30. I know I spewed a lot of information, but that's my overview. And like I said, sites, Google Sites and Google Classroom, I'm happy to answer any questions about those now or anytime. I do have quite a bit of experience with both of them, but I, based on the powers that be, I'm not really supposed to be pushing that. So any questions? And actually, I think I'll stop sharing so I can see everyone. I do see something in the chat box. Okay. You're welcome, Jen.
Maureen, I think it's just we have so much unknown right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think we probably have questions, but we just don't know what to ask because we don't know where we're going.
Absolutely. I get it. And I'm feeling that a little bit.
Yeah.
So like I said, this is a conversation. So anytime, email me or find me once we can be in the same place at the same time.
But you really think, well, you know that we're going Schoology. So in my mindset, I think I'll just go Schoology. I can't double dip. I've got to go one route or the other.
Yeah.
But Jane McCall alluded to, well, she indicated that somehow grades will be easier to, it'll be one platform to get the grades. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. Yes.
Explain better than I am explaining.
So for example, like if one of those Google quizzes I created, if I were using that in my Google Classroom, I then have to still manually go into PowerSchool to enter my grades. Where in Schoology, there's a way to create assessments right in there, you know, kind of similar to like Google Forms, Google Quizzes, and any grades for those or any assignments in there that you assign a grade to, there's a little like sync button to sync everything to your PowerSchool because it's like part of the same kind of umbrella. It will all automatically, as long as you've set up the syncing, which I think it's automatically clicked unless you uncheck it, jive with your gradebook. So you won't have to, you know, even if you kind of have it set up where it's easy to grade because it's in Google Classroom or Google Forms or something where it kind of the computer grades it for you based on the correct answers you put in. This one, not only will it give you the percentage, it will automatically put that percentage in the gradebook. So yes. Sorry, I'm kind of smiling / laughing. I have a 10, almost 11-year-old boy kind of pretending to be a puppy next to me.
Can you leave?
Wanting my attention. I'm seeing comments. You're very welcome. And yeah, anytime questions, I recorded this. I'll share it's going to be a YouTube video that I create a recording of this with, or convert it to a YouTube video that I'll share. And then I'll also share the interactive or clickable slides. So yeah.
And you'll check on whether it can read to you.
Yes, absolutely. So I will check on accessibility in general for Google Suites. It's something I want to learn actually. I've been starting to dabble in some more of the Google for Education, and that's something I haven't specifically learned yet. So, all right. Well, I'll hang out here for a few minutes if anyone has questions.